After Israel has asked the civilians of Gaza to leave the northern part and move to the southern part to probably allow for a ground invasions, disturbing video evidence shows that seems to indicate that Hamas might have attacked civilians fleeing from that area, probably to shift blame to Israel and to frighten them from fleeing and force them to stay as human shields. In this video, we are going to look at the evidence, at the videos, that the signs we have about all of this, and we are going to talk about the current developments in the Israel's war against Hamas. Thanks to OBS, I'm recording this for a second time as I will have to report my video about the Ukraine war because OBS decided to change the microphone settings. So here we are again. Hamas is now saying that 13 of the hostages they taken in their terrorist attack against Israel 1 week ago, where they slaughtered over 1,000 civilians, including Holocaust survivors, including babies, beheading them, burning them alive, etc. In their horrifying terrorist attack. They also abducted over 150 people from Israel, and they claim that 13 of those have died so far in the air attacks. At the same time, there is a video showing Hamas fighters to use Israeli children as human shields. This is obviously a war crime, but at the same time, the Hamas would be forced to save prisoners from harm. The Geneva Convention clearly says that if you take prisoners, you need to make sure that they are safely away from attacks. And the argument that Gaza doesn't allow for that is simply not true. A short look on the satellite pictures show us that significant parts of Gaza are far less inhabited, but obviously they want to hide them among the population and hide them among their own personnel, and thus ignoring the rules of war. But then again, we're talking about Hamas, and their terrorist attack a week ago was not according to any rules of war either. This attack has obviously started the war of Israel against Hamas, which Israel aims to destroy Hamas once and for all now. And now they ask them, the population, the civilians of Gaza, to vacate everything north of the Gaza Wadi to move to the southern part of the Gaza Strip. The map, if we look on it, actually shows the distance, just so we can put it into some perspective. I made the measurements here. It's 16.7 kilometers. What's that? Roughly 10 miles. 10.4 miles. That's a distance that 90% of the inhabitants, probably even more, can walk easily within 24 hours. And for the other 10, there should be transportation equipment. So that demand is not completely absurd. We need to put that into account. Obviously, the questions are, where should they move to the south? Where can they find shelter? At the same time, it's still not winter, and winter in this Gaza Strip is far less horrifying than it would be in Northern Europe. So right now, Israel is handing over the tactical element of surprise, basically signaling to Gaza, to the Hamas there, that they are likely going to invade the northern part of the Gaza Strip, allowing Hamas to move reinforcements and moving resupply accordingly. This event now led to Hamas asking the civilians to stay. They have shown in the past that they use civilians as human shields. They've shown that again and again. And civilians are refusing to leave. Some at least are refusing to leave and have said so in interviews because they fear a second Nakba. That's the Arabic word for what happened. I think it means the catastrophe. That's what led to the refugees after the Israeli War of Independence. Basically, the civilians are afraid that Israel, if they flee south, if they evacuate the whole area, that Israel might never allow them back, and basically they would lose their territory as well. At the same time, though, we have visual evidence of Israel from the Israeli side, of Hamas using civilian areas for missile attacks. You see it here, well within the built-up residential areas. Missiles are being launched into the Israeli heartland. This shows us that Hamas, once more, we have one more visual evidence of Hamas using the civilian areas for military activity, which is a clear violation of the law. At the same time, it's Hamas's responsibility to evacuate civilians civilians around every area that they use for military purpose, for stationing, for housing, for storage of equipment, etc., for firing from. So if an Israeli counterstrike on a position like this, if that kills civilians, the pure responsibility for that lies with Hamas. And we have once more, not that we needed fresh evidence, we have once more evidence of Hamas using civilian areas. Before the evacuation order, Israel was also already dropping leaflets and informations about which areas have to be vacated. We see that here in Arabic, showing the clear area where the Israeli airstrikes are to be expected, asking the civilians to leave the area to reduce civilian losses in those areas. There are numbers now. The Hamas wants to prevent civilians from leaving that area for several purposes. The more civilians are there, the more they can use for human shields, which will hinder the Israeli to, for instance, simply blow up buildings where they're getting fired upon, unless they want to accept the huge loss of civilian life, which then again will go through the international media and create pressure on the Israelis. So Hamas has a clear and vested interest in keeping the civilians there. Not just did they call them initially to stay, now there have been at least 2 attacks being reported on refugee convoys leaving the area. Now, one of the videos that I can't show you, which you will have no issues in finding if you look for an attack on refugees, it was close to the bridge over the Wadi Gaza. It shows corpses lying on the street, but despite it supposedly being an air attack, the majority of the cars around don't have broken windshields, don't have broken windows, showing that it can't have been a bomb as it was supposed to be, at least not an aerial bomb. And there's a fresh video now from that too. There's another attack that has happened. This first attack, by the way, was supposed to have killed 70 people. And here we have another one being filmed. No corpses visible here. And you see the explosion right in the front. Yeah, the important thing is this is with 30 frames per second, which does not show any projectile hitting here. At the same time, the explosion itself is from its intensity and from the fireball speaks against military explosives. This was definitely not an aerial bomb. There is no question about it because the explosion was far too weak for that. If it had happened, all those cars would be destroyed too, probably flying away. In theory, it could have been an RPG or an anti-tank guided missile. You could claim it was fired from a combat helicopter. That could in theory be a possibility, but then we should see the missile striking it and the explosion would look different in this part. The likelihood of this explosion, the cause for that was one of Hamas's typical gas tank bombs, which they use for IEDs and which they have proved to be used in the past. And this is, at least this video shows us what is claimed to be an aerial attack clearly is none. This video is freshly published, claiming to be an Israeli attack on civilians fleeing the northern part of Gaza. To everything I can say with this was not an Israeli air attack. Neither was it with a bomb, and the likelihood of it being an ATGM from an Israeli helicopter, for instance, is extremely low. So the most likely thing we see here is Hamas actually using an IED to strike fleeing civilians leaving the northern part of Gaza. The reason for that is fairly simple. They create international outrage. Pictures of dead civilians prove how evil the Israelis are, and it forces civilians to be afraid of fleeing, so rather staying at home to be used as human shields in this area. The overall situation, other than that, in Gaza is that it is to be expected that Israel will likely invade the northern part of the Gaza Strip soon. Israeli armed forces say they are ready. They have given away the tactical surprise by basically announcing we are going to enter here. So that seems highly likely that they actually will enter that part in force fairly soon. And at the same time, the northern front towards Lebanon is heating up somewhat too. Hezbollah has opened that front by starting to attack Israel. Israel is now responding for several days already with artillery fire and with airstrikes. There are some reports from pro-Hezbollah sources of attempted and somewhat successful infiltrations over the border. I have not clear evidence that those supposedly successful infiltrations have had any serious effect and any serious success so far. So while the northern front is heating up and intensive artillery fire is happening, the majority of the fighting fighting is clearly close to the Gaza Strip. Both sides in the north seem to be somewhat still interested in not letting it get out of hand. So we'll have to see whether or not the situation towards the Lebanon will intensify as well. In the West Bank, there's also fighting, but this is in comparison still fairly low. We have occasionally armed groups attacking each other, and the attacks are happening on settlers there and on military forces, and some of them respond in a deadly manner. So there are several deaths in the West Bank as well happening as so far. Overall, though, the situation is going to heat up. Clear signs that we shall expect a ground invasion fairly soon. As soon as I find the time, I'm going to make a specific video about the challenges the Israelis will face from the military side of entering the Gaza Strip. So if you don't want to miss this, I would like to invite you to subscribe to the channel and hit the bell icon. I will also publish soon a video about a situation report about the situation in the Ukraine war. That was also recorded up front, but unfortunately also without sound. At some point, I'm going to learn to check every single time when I record a video whether or not it's recording, but again, I missed it, so I'll have to do it another time as well. Still, if you like this video, please hit the thumbs up button. It really helps with the algorithm, and leave a comment. What do you think about the current situation? Do you think the war will widen towards Lebanon? And when do you think the Israelis will invade the Gaza Strip? And especially, what do you think they're going to do with the Gaza Strip? Because that's the big question. What are they going to do once they've taken over? Because who are they supposed to hand it over to? That's it from me for now. This channel is only possible because of the support of viewers like you. If you'd like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. And I need to apologize for my nose. I have a little cold, nothing serious, but as you can hear, my voice is kind of changing as soon as my nose clogs up. Still though, if you like to support the channel, you can do so by the means in the description. And that's it from me for now. Thank you for watching, and I'll be back.